Argentina's human rights organizations announced illegal detentions and serious right violations during protests against the administration of Javier Milei. Head of the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Middle East announced that Israel has stolen the childhood of Gaza children. And in South Africa, the African National Congress, the Democratic Alliance, and the Inkatha Freedom Party reached an agreement to form a government. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In Argentina, human rights organizations denounced serious violations during protests against the government of Javier Milei. During the debate of the bill known as the Law of Bases, thousands of Argentinians demonstrated in front of the parliament to express their rejection. In this way, they affirmed that the government policies affect the democratic guarantees, the norms and principles, and even territorial integrity. Protesters pointed out that they were repressed by security forces, while the Center of Professionals for Human Rights also denounced arbitrary arrests and violations of human rights as they called for an urgent press conference on Friday. And the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, announced a mega electricity plan with the participation of China, Turkey, and India for the generation of solar energy in the Andean region of the country. During his meeting to Merida State, the head of state urged to promote the economic development of the country, pointing out that by July they aspire to increase to 100% the credit granted for the benefit of the people. He also highlighted that the strength of the entity for having been one of the most affected by the guarimbas that began in the year 2014. And at the same time, he expressed that the country is leading to peace, declaring that the guarimbas and intolerance in the Venezuelan territory will never come back.
Curando las heridas de la guerra económica.
Healing the wounds of the economic war, advancing in each one of the fronts. That is why today I announced that we have agreed on a new plan of higher level with China and Turkey to build solar energy parks and bring them to Merida to produce at least 200 megawatts of self-generated electricity. Here, Madam Vice President, I want to come soon to start the assembly of the solar parks in Merida, in the whole state of Merida, soon.
On the other hand, a day of review and checking of the 1x10x7 strategic plan was carried out in the municipality of Tucupita, Delta Amacuro State, led by the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez. During the event, Rodriguez made reference to all the violent actions promoted by the opposition sectors in the country and called on the Venezuelan people to reject such crimes and exercise their right to vote on July 28th to achieve the victory of the candidate of the Bolivarian Revolution, Nicolás Maduro. And on Tuesday, Venezuela hosted the first international conference in the Americas regarding the ongoing Palestinian Holocaust. The two-day event is being attended by intellectuals from around the world who are meeting at the Rómulo Gallego Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies in Caracas under the slogan, "A New Holocaust in the 21st Century, Zionism Threatens the World." And Mexico's President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum held a press conference on Thursday in which she addressed several current national issues, including the essence of the fourth transformation, its projections, and the social justice it represents for the Mexican people.
Another very important one is justice. I have said that justice has several sides. Social justice, which is the essence of the fourth transformation. For the well-being of all, first of all the poor. In its essence, it has social justice, environmental justice, justice for women, justice for the indigenous and the Afro-Mexican peoples. And I think that, in addition to the justice system in our country, one side has to do with justice beyond the criminal area. And I believe that today justice is being served to families.
And also in her speech, the elected president highlighted the strength of the current Mexican economic model and assured that neoliberalism will not return to the country.
The economic strength of Mexico is due to this change of economic model that took place in our country. We left neoliberalism behind and started the moral economy. The Mexican humanism, the fourth transformation, which changed the model. The economy was pushed from below. And this is what provides it with a huge power at this time, and also to continue receiving investments in the country. And the economic model will continue. We always said it, and it will always be so. Neoliberalism will not return to our country.
Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The head of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Middle East, Felipe Lazzarini, warned that humanity could meet the lost generation of Palestinian children. In a report, the humanitarian expert assured that the genocidal operation carried out by Israel has stolen the childhood of the children of Gaza, stressing that for them, the wait for a ceasefire is not possible. Lazzarini commented on the suffering of the children in the Gaza Strip and stated that the number of killed is scandalous. He also highlighted how the thousands of wounded will be scarred for life and reiterated that without a ceasefire, this will be a lost generation that will be easy prey for exploitation. And Israel's genocidal siege persists in the Gaza Strip despite constant demands for a ceasefire. The Gazari Health Ministry reported that the Palestinian death toll from the Tel Aviv aggression exceeds 37,232 deaths and counts more than 85,037 civilians injured since the escalation of attacks on October 7th, including 30 Gazans killed during the attacks on the last 24 hours. Many of the victims remain under the rubble as the Israeli siege prevents rescue workers from carrying out their work. In this context, the United Nations warned of the environmental and health risks from the accumulation of garbage in the Gaza Strip. The Public Works and Relief Agency for Palestinian Refugees indicated that as of June 9th, more than 330,000 tons of waste has accumulated in populated areas throughout the Gaza Strip. Because of the Israeli siege leading to a sanitary crisis due to the environmental impact, the destruction of more than 700 kilometers of water networks and 9 of the 10 main storage tanks. The United Nations organization debated on Thursday the elimination of unilateral extraterritorial coercive measures as a means of political and economic pressure. Several organizations participated in the meeting, as well as the non-aligned movement, and nations such as Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, Belarus, and the Russian Federation. At the session, the UN addressed how Western ingerence affects the economic life and social development of the peoples of the world. In this context, Colombia's permanent representative to the United Nations, Juliet de Rivero, described unilateral coercive measures as a violation of international law and the UN Charter.
Unilateral coercive economic measures constitute a violation of the principles of international law enshrined in the United Nations Charter, and they do harm to all aspects of life in the countries against which they are directed. In particular, they negatively affect access to food, clean water, sanitation, electricity, sufficient medicines, medical equipment, prevention and control of diseases, training, and the latest scientific, technological, and research knowledge.
Also in this context, and during his speech, the permanent representative of Bolivia to the UN, Diego Pari Rodriguez, emphasized that unilateral measures have devastating consequences on the economy and stability of the populations of the affected countries.
The unilateral coercive measures, as the name quite well tells you, are arbitrary, capricious measures imposed by one state on another with the aim of generating economic, trade and financial effects that are adverse to the country for political reasons that have devastating consequences on the economies and the stability of the populations of the countries that are affected. These unilateral measures not only affect governments, but they directly affect peoples. They affect their well-being, their development, and stop them building their life's projects.
And also the permanent representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the United Nations, Inga Ronda King, recalled during her speech that the objectives to create the United Nations.
Excellencies, we, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to reaffirm faith in, inter alia, fundamental human rights, the dignity and worth of the human person, the equal rights of men and women and of nations large and small, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. Explicit within the preamble of the Charter of the United Nations is this ambitious and unambiguous, people-centric declaration that enshrines our commitment to put first always the dignity and worth of the human person. This declaration embeds the immutable notion that the United Nations was created to serve all humanity and is not a mere forum to house alliances of sovereign states. This is a fundamental notion from which our non-derogable commitments flow.
And for his part, the permanent representative of Algeria to the United Nations, Ammar Ben-Diama, stressed the impact of the unilateral coercive measures on developing countries.
Unilateral coercive economic measures, such as economic sanctions and trade embargoes imposed on several developing countries, undermine the principles of sovereign equality of state and the non-intervention principle enshrined in the UN Charter.
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In South Africa on Friday, the African National Congress, the Democratic Alliance and the Inkatha Freedom Party reached an agreement to form government. The alliance practically ensures that Cyril Ramaphosa will be re-elected as president of the country. In this sense, the Secretary General of the ruling party, Fikile Mbalula, had talks regarding a government of national unity with the opposition parties. According to Mabalula, the small parties agreed to the agreement and only the radical left party, the economic freedom fighters, refused to adhere to the proposal for a government of unity. We go now to Cuba, where a U.S. Navy submarine entered the Guantanamo Bay on Thursday, following the arrival of 3 warships and a nuclear submarine of the Russian Navy at the Havana harbor, where they will remain until June 17th. The U.S. Southern Command specified that the USS Helena, a nuclear-powered fast attack submarine, is making a routine harbor visit to Guantanamo during its scheduled trip to the region. In turn, the agency AP reports that the submarine arrived off the Cuban coast in a show of force as a fleet of Russian warships assembles for planned military exercises in the Caribbean. Colombian community museums are pillars of cultural preservation and local education, reflecting the diversity and history of various communities. These spaces offer a unique window to traditions, art, heritage, enriching social and cultural fabric of the country. Our correspondent Valeria Cardona tells us more about them.
Community museums continue to emerge as powerful centers of cultural preservation that strengthens Colombia's national identity. In a country rich in ethnic and cultural diversity, these museums are living testimonies to the history and identity of diverse communities, offering a unique window into their traditions, art, and heritage.
A museum is an energy field. It's a place where several energies converge. What's more, it is a space where processes of social transformation can take root. Community museums are the essence or the basis to guarantee the polyphony of voices in the country.
In 2011, Colombia's network of community museums emerged from 15 different initiatives in ethnic, rural, and even conflict-impacted contexts. These museums, mostly registered under the Museum Strengthening Program of the National Museum of Colombia, make up 70% out of the 467 museums in the country registered with the Ministry of Culture, Arts, and Knowledge. Remarkable examples include the community-supported Romantic Museum of Barranquilla.
The Barranquilla community has preserved the Romantic Museum over the last 4 years. Grounded in, we have advanced in each of the processes with a volunteer program. What's more, we managed to ensure that citizens and new generations can have a little sense of belonging to the history of their city and to what makes them be from Barranquilla.
Another example is the archaeology room of Villarosa in Repelón, Atlántico Department, where it's been observed that it's common to find pieces of pottery, stone and bone, which emerge naturally after rainfall or during the preparation of the land by farmers for cultivation. In response to this phenomenon, the community created the archaeological room.
This project had such an impact on the community that they began to bring us many pieces, and from there, another problem arose. What we were going to do with these pieces, and that is how, through negotiations with the departmental secretary, we built what is now the Severe Archaeology Room, which is a representation of the Macana culture.
Colombian community museums face sustainability challenges, but they are adopting innovative initiatives, such as the Glass Museum of Bogota, where the teaching of traditional glass techniques to new generations of master glassmakers in workshops, as well as the use of social media to teach citizens about this art and boost interest to preserve their legacy and the museum.
Valeria Cardona, TeleSUR, Bogotá, Colombia.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.